In this video, I have 5 DMing tips for you to help your games be a little more immersive. Pull your players in for some epic D&D moments. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is a basic one, but it's still worth mentioning, and that is prepping. Now, when I say prepping, I mean prep the stuff that you should prep and don't prep the stuff that you shouldn't prep. I'll expound on that a little bit. Your job as the Dungeon Master is not to tell a stories to the player, but create an environment where epic stories can happen. So, when you're prepping your NPCs, you should make sure that you know what motivates them and how to bring them to life and interact with your players. And anything that you can improvise, you don't need to prep in advance. You just need to prep the motivations behind it and understand all of that so that when it comes time to improvise, you can do that effectively. Tip number 2 is talk to your players outside of the sessions. Most problems that I see or questions that I read from people in the community, the answer to those issues is talk to your players outside of the game. There was one person that said they were 2 sessions in and their players just weren't taking it serious. They were being ridiculous and all of that stuff and wanted to know what rules to change or if they should punish them for being ridiculous or any of that stuff. No, you should talk to them outside of your game and then make sure that everyone is on the same page going into it. This is also why a session 0 is super useful to make sure that everyone has their expectations and goals aligned going into it. Speaking of goals, you should also make sure that you talk to the players outside of sessions to understand the goals for their characters and where they want their characters to go. That way there's not a battle between you and your players as they're trying to do something specific that you weren't ready for. You can also talk to your players about things that they're planning on doing in the next session so you have time to prep that. I do this all the time. If they're about to finish with one arc, I ask what they're going to want to do so that I know how to prep the next one and how to kind of get things moving in the right direction so they don't wander around aimlessly for a while feeling like the story isn't progressing. And that brings us right into tip number 3, which is to be flexible. You may have a challenge and a way that you expect the players to overcome it, and when they do it a different way, if their way makes sense, let it work. Don't try to force them to do everything the way that you had thought of. Everyone gets frustrated if you try to do that, and it's just way more fun to just be flexible and let them create their own ways to solve the problems or overcome the challenges. Basically, don't take away their agency. It's a big one. That one can ruin campaigns. Tip number 4, if you're running a pre-written module, feel free to change the story, break away from the module a little bit, change things a little bit or completely. This was a mistake I made when I first started DMing for D&D. I was running a pre-written module, and when I was reading it, I would think, man, my players probably aren't going to enjoy this. And then when I ran it, sure enough, they didn't enjoy it. They thought that it was dumb. And then I was like, well, that's what the module said was supposed to happen. That's a terrible excuse. You can't tell them it's what the module said, and then the players are going to go, oh, actually, never mind, then I did have fun, you're a great DM. That's not how that works. Feel free to change things so that you can incorporate the characters' backstories into the module and make it feel like it was designed for them. A lot of cool things that you can do, but just don't feel isolated to specifically what's in the book. You can break away from that. And here's a bonus tip. You can also use different monsters. If they have something that's lame, you can use a different monster or an even stronger monster. And if it's too strong for the players to fight, make that monster injured. There's nothing that says that every time they fight a monster, it has to be at 100% health. Maybe the monster that you want them to fight is epic and awesome, but it would kill them. So instead, they've already used their innate spell casting. They don't have any more casts of that available. Or they're already at half health, and when the players see the monster, you describe it as limping and already looking like it had just come out of a fight. And then if there's another one of those monsters, if the players ever encounter it while it's full health, they're going to be like, ooh, we shouldn't mess with this dude. We barely beat the one that was injured when we fought it. This one's full health? No, thank you. Tip number 5, and your players will appreciate this one, and this is don't scale the party to the game, scale the game to the party. And what I mean by this is don't keep your players weaker so that your bad guys are stronger. Let your players do what they want. Let them get strong. Let them be useful and feel like awesome heroes. And if they get too strong, just buff the bad guys. It's pretty easy to do, especially if they haven't fought any of them before. And before we end it, I have one more bonus tip for you, and that's just to try using milestone leveling. Sometimes calculating XP can slow the game down, and with milestone leveling, the players won't feel like they need to kill everything for experience and for levels. They can focus more on role-playing, getting through the story, and overcoming challenges in creative ways, and then you keep them leveling up at an appropriate pace for the campaign and for ending where you wanted it to. Well, that does it for this video. If you got any value out of it, hit that like button, subscribe for more D&D content, and I will catch you in the next video.